Welcome to miamilitpodcast. My name is Jenny.
And I'm Gene.
And today we're discussing the art of conversation in our very first episode.
And I'm very excited. So I guess I just have to ask you, so what do we really mean by the art of conversation?
So I think everyone pretty much understands conversation, right? Like you and I, we're talking right now, we're having a conversation. But I've noticed in my circles that it's become a little bit more difficult to just talk to each other and just have regular conversations without people getting insulted, being triggered. So how do we do that without other people, without feeling the judgment of others?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, we're living kind of like in a weird time because this is a time that full of, they're called hyper triggers, hypersensitivity. Right. We have to trigger warn every time that we're going to talk about something. Yeah. People are afraid. I notice that a lot. I notice that people are afraid to talk about certain things. And it's kind of weird because it's sort of like, I mean, we are creatures that all we've done for over a millennia is sit around campfires and talk about stuff.
Exactly.
But now it's just kind of like a time where people are afraid and people are also unwilling to talk about a lot of things. And to be fair, it's getting to a point where I personally feel that free speech itself is kind of coming under attack.
For
and
sure.
If anything, we're kind of just letting it happen.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that's why it's so important that you and I have this conversation today. And if you are joining us on YouTube, feel free to comment down below. Like, what do you think about all these issues surrounding free speech? It's not just on a personal level, but even in your work environment. Like, I know, Gene, you're a teacher. Are you able to talk to your colleagues, to your students?
Oh, no. No, of course not.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to say anything. On the one hand, the education system itself is like kind of putting a lot on itself. And that's just kind of what our culture is moving towards, because not only is the education system in charge of taking care of, like literally physically taking care of children, but it's also in charge of teaching, I know it's in the word itself, but it's actually giving the information, an objective, valid information to the next generation. But the problem is just like everything else, it's a business. And
exactly.
As a business, it has to take care of itself. So I can't talk about certain things because, at the end of the day, it's about like, all right, are you going to get sued, for talking about something? All it takes is one parent to kind of be upset, and then it gets shut down.
Yeah. I think the most dangerous thing right now is that we as a society are valuing a lot more political correctness and just making sure everyone feels safe and in their safe space and everyone's okay over facts and over saying things that may be important to you. And your opinion all of a sudden is not the right opinion, so it can be expressed.
Yeah.
That's extremely dangerous.
Where do you think that comes from? Or where do you think that came from? Because this seems like it's something that's kind of new.
It does feel like it's kind of new, but I feel like it's been brewing in the background for a couple of years. And I don't know. I feel like it has to do with this postmodernist ideals that our culture has been cycling through for the last couple of years. And I feel like we're getting to the boiling point,
Boiling point. You're sending a chill up my spine. What's going to happen? Oh my gosh. I mean, but I think you're right. And I think like what you mean by like boiling point is, I think that we're sort of leading from having this cultural phenomenon of people being overly sensitive and people striving for political correctness. And it's moving more from uncovering, or at least in an environmental sense, that we're like, okay, we want to make everybody happy.
Right.
But I think it's also it's also forming itself into some legal aspect too. Yeah. And I think that I think that once it starts getting into the legal aspect, it starts to get pretty scary. Because it starts getting like everybody's favorite new word on Twitter now. It's getting Orwellian, right?
Yes.
So it's like everybody on Twitter says all the time. It's the new trend of 2020 was like, all right, what's not Orwellian about 2020? But it's true, because people now are, for one, they're afraid to talk about things. People are also unwilling to talk about certain things, and people are creating laws now that are
Right.
enforcing that, and it's frightening because as someone, I mean, I've known you for a long time, so as someone who values free speech, or sort of
Absolutely.
our product, you know, because you were my teacher, right? So it's
Yes.
like, you know, I'm a teacher now, so it's like our product is, you know, is free speech. So for me to feel like free speech itself is kind of under attack, it's worrisome, and in a way it kind of makes me want to think about what we can do about it. But maybe we should talk about the problem itself before we think of a solution.
Yes.
So I mean, so when do you feel like you have to be politically correct to, or you feel this pressure, this societal pressure from not being able to talk about the things that you want to talk about?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not in the classroom anymore, but definitely when I was in the classroom, there was this huge pressure to, you know, stay unbiased, which I completely agree with. As a teacher, you should be unbiased, but there's a difference between that and having to be politically correct.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so let me put it to you this way. If a student has a different political opinion than your personal political opinion, obviously you need to remain unbiased. This is his or her political opinion, and you have to respect it, and you shouldn't impact your own personal upon your students.
What if your
That would
students
be-
what if your student's a Nazi? Are you going to
Well, then there's a conversation that needs to be had on why you don't want to be evil.
Fair
But
enough.
that's different between your political opinion, right? I
mean,
would hope.
so.
I
Yeah,
would hope.
I hope so, right?
Right? But no, I don't know where I was going with that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Well, I mean, because you were
forgot.
you were talking about that students. Well, you have to have an open mind.
Right. Right. That's what I mean when I say unbiased. You don't put your own personal upon your students, but at the same time, there is a policy of free speech, and you should, as a teacher or as a person, period, be able to say, this is what we're discussing today, you know, and be able to discuss it openly.
That's cool. A policy of free speech.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's kind of gone the opposite direction.
Right.
I
Well, that's what I meant. Sorry to interrupt you. When I said I felt it in the classroom, there was this pressure to constantly be politically correct, even if it sacrificed lectures or teachable moments. You kind of had to gloss over them because you had to remain politically correct.
Do you have an example of that?
Let me see. There were so many. Oh, actually, yes. I don't. Okay, I hope I get his name right. The football player that refused to do the pledge.
Oh,
No,
Colin
is
Kaepernick.
it-
Yeah.
Okay, him. My students came in super riled up because they agreed like he shouldn't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, or right, the salute of the
Yeah,
flag. Or,
the
I'm
kneeling,
not familiar
yeah.
with football, so I have no idea.
Yeah, you don't have
what
to be.
happens at a
It's-
football game.
It's a sport. Every sports fan out there, you guys know, we're kind of upset with sports because it's just become politicized, and it's like
Right.
The Romans used sports to get away from politics, and then,
Exactly.
but yeah, as you were saying,
And I remember having a discussion in class and just feeling that pressure, like, oh my goodness, we shouldn't be talking about this, but we have to.
why did you feel like you couldn't talk about it?
In the moment, it just felt like that wasn't the right thing to discuss, and the kids would even let you know, but the news say, but the radio says, my friends say, and here you're telling them, okay, but there are other points of views that you should address. Basically have a whole picture type of thing, and not just go with, this is what everyone's saying, so this is what I should think too.
Yeah, no, I
And
completely.
that was my goal as a teacher, and I'm sure it was yours.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that it's a tricky subject to talk about because for one, it was such a polarizing event that had happened, and it reminds me. Shout out to all the Star Wars fans. It reminds me of that line that it's like, all right, it's super corny, but I think there's some truth to it, that there's both sides think they're good, but there's evil everywhere.
Absolutely.
And whichever side on the debate you were on, whether it was okay for him to kneel during the Pledge of Allegiance,
Right.
it was still important to talk about.
Right, and that was my biggest point. The conversation needed to be had, no matter what side of the conversation we're on. It was a conversation that had to be had. Just like today, there's so many conversations that need to be had, and people in their own homes, in their work, and just in their lives, they just can't have these conversations. And I think that would make a huge difference if you would be able to approach conversations freely, without fear. And
I guess it's kind of one point before I ask this question. It brings me back to like that point I was making earlier, that it's a responsibility now that's on top of it, because if they're asking about it in the classroom, it's because they're not talking about it at home. But so there's that thirst, this natural thirst for knowledge. That's what Aristotle said, where this is naturally knowledge-seeking being that we are. And if it's being satisfied, you're not really going to bring it up. But it's like if it's being brought up in the classroom, it's because you have questions, right?
Yeah. It was important to you.
Exactly.
Enough that you were thinking about it and you wanted more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I have to ask you, it's like, well, where do you think this fear is coming from?
I mean, I can't say for sure, but I feel like it has to do with just being othered.
Yes.
I think we have a basic need to belong and a basic need to be a part of our tribe. And if you're othered, all of a sudden you're none of those things.
Yeah.
And that's scary. Absolutely. No one wants to go through that, especially for what seems like no reward, because what do you get? Nothing. You get to be ostracized and judged and called, stupid or whatever else people say about you. So I don't know.
Yeah, no one wants to be the outcast, and especially for your personal beliefs, because your beliefs that's the cool thing about them. They belong to you, and we attach ourselves to our beliefs. Right. It's kind of like when people get like something that's happened ever since Trump became president. Former president Trump became president. It's still a little hard to get used to it.
Right. It's been a while.
It's been a while, but we can talk about Biden later. But something that happened when former President Trump became president was that people identified with each other's politics. Mm-hmm. And if you were, let's say, on a political side that you didn't agree with, you saw them as an enemy. Yeah. So the classic, all right, the Trump supporter, or you're a Trump supporter, you're the enemy. Right. And then to the Trump supporters, all right, you're not a Trump supporter, whether you were for Hillary or you were for Biden, all right, you were the enemy too. And it's kind of interesting because, I mean, I'm not that old, but I don't think I'm that young either. But
you're young.
I don't remember.
And so am I.
Yes. I don't remember that ever actually happening. Like, I don't remember people. I mean, growing up, like, I don't remember people like genuinely giving a shit if you voted for Bush or if you voted for.
I mean, I think it's happened before, but not in our, in our living memory, as you say. I don't think there's been a time where, as much as now, where your political affiliations equaled your morality and who you are as a person. So if you are a Republican, all of a sudden, now I know that you are probably racist and a bigot and all these other things. And if you're a Democrat, then you are all these other labels. And I think it's extremely dangerous, again, to equate someone's political ideas with who they are as a person. Because you could be a Republican and be a terrible person. You could be a Democrat and be a terrible person, or vice versa.
No, so, exactly. I mean,
I think to tell people, like, to pull out your political card as a voucher for who you are, it's not the smartest thing.
It's definitely not the smartest thing. But it's also not the safest thing to do either. Right. Because especially with a pandemic that's happened, everyone's super tense. Everyone is extremely stressed out, more than usual, because life itself has always been stressful. But I feel like post-pandemic, everything's going to feel like a vacation afterwards because
Definitely feels very apocalyptic.
I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's. I think people like to be afraid. It's like
Yes.
it's why we go to amusement
It's
parks,
a-
we go on
yeah.
roller coasters, we watch scary movies. I think people just like to feel it's.
You have a point.
Yeah,
It's true.
and it's starting to end. You know, it's starting
Yeah.
to. I don't want to. You know, I'll knock on wood. You know, but it's if you know traveling is becoming more of a reality. The vaccines, they turn out pretty good. Like Johnson & Johnson had some, had some irregularities there, but
Right.
like numerically speaking, it's going very well. And yeah, schools are gonna open back up. Like I feel like we're getting
So
there.
you think we're towards the end? The light is there at the end of the tunnel.
I think that so I feel like the day-to-day worrying about the pandemic is going to end soon.
Right.
Do I think that the ramifications of it are going to end soon? I don't think so. And I don't think that the issues that it brought up are going to end soon. There's a lot of things going on, particularly about free speech, that have happened because of this pandemic.
Yes.
And I don't know. I don't really see, unless I see some action, and this is kind of like our, partly why we're doing this, like this is like what our part in it. Unless I see some action moving back into the direction of normalcy. And I say back intentionally because we have gotten used to this idea of new normal. And I was talking with a coworker, and she kind of scared me because one of her worries is, are we going to forget what it was like pre-COVID? And yeah, it kind of scared me because it kind of reminds me of like post 9/11.
Yeah.
I was a little kid when that happened, but I still kind of vaguely remember. Actually, I don't remember airports being so lenient. My older coworkers tell me like, I could walk inside the plane and walk right back out without showing a ticket or anything. And then now I have to take off my shoes and I have to take off, I have to get practically naked so they can scan me.
Right.
And then we've gotten so used to it. And are we going to get used to this new normal?
Right.
Are we going to forget what it was like pre-COVID? And what worries me, at least like in the context of what we're talking about now, it's like a lot of this, it's a psychological phenomenon where of association, right? So it's like we associate things together and they're reinforced with each other. So it's conditioning, right? So it's like if I train my dog, if he sits, I give him a treat, right?
Right.
So then he expects a reward every time he sits. We put on a mask, we feel safe.
Yes.
We put on a mask and we feel, okay, I'm accepted in the society, right?
Right.
Anti-masker, get out of here, right?
Yeah.
And all they're doing is standing up for what they believe. That's their method of free speech, right?
Back to our main topic at hand for today, and the art of conversation and seeking out for your own growth these conversations that may not necessarily align with your beliefs, whether those be political, personal, whatever have you, just like you and I are doing today.
I want to talk about cancel culture.
Yes, let's do it. Go for it.
Well, let's just say we hate cancel culture.
We do.
I think
why?
Oh my God.
Why not?
You know what's funny about it is that I don't know a single person that is cool with cancel culture. Like, I really don't. Everybody that I know hates it.
Okay, I want to say that too. I want to say I don't think I've met anyone that enjoys cancel culture. But if you, not you, but me, when I talk to other people, in my life or whatever, they don't think they are going for cancel culture, but their opinions and the things they say are very much aligned with cancel culture. But they would never think that they're taking part in it. Does that make sense?
Can you explain what you mean by that? Because I'm a little confused.
So, for example, let me see. I should have prepared an example for you. But basically what I mean is people sometimes express these opinions and they would say like, I'm not for cancel culture. That's wrong. People should be able to say whatever they want to say. But then you say something that goes against what they believe. And all of a sudden you're on that chopping block. Like you could be out just like that. You're no longer part. You know what I'm saying? And that could be political or any other kind of opinion. And it's something that people don't claim to partake, but I've noticed in my, personal experience that they are partaking in it and they have no idea. I don't know if you've had anything like that happen to you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know where I see that a lot of, don't cancel me, right?
I won't.
It's I get that a lot from feminists.
Yes.
So
sorry.
No, yeah. I mean, sorry, but not sorry, right? No, because it's...
And why am I apologizing? I didn't do anything to you.
Yeah, I don't know why you're apologizing. I'm the one saying it, right? So it's sorry, but not sorry. But yeah, I feel like whenever I talk to a feminist, I get that too. I get that feeling where, okay, like for example, don't cancel women, right? It's like women deserve to have this same amount of platform that males have.
Right.
But then as soon as you say something that's anti-feminist, then it's like, oh no, you're absolutely wrong.
And all of a sudden you're canceled.
Right?
But yet they were just saying, a second ago, don't cancel women or whatever. So
it's kind of like people are sort of against cancel culture when it comes to their own agendas.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, I mean, and that's what kind of confuses me about the entire thing, because it confuses me that it's like, where does it come from? I mean, why? Like, so I was reading about it, canceling Mr. Potato Head, right?
Yeah, that's why they're here.
Yeah, it's like, why?
We have Mr. and Mrs.
Mr. and you can't say
We
that
have
anymore.
both.
Nope, you can't say that anymore. That's wrong. They're just the potato heads. Yep. Yeah. No, actually, they took that back. Actually. So apparently they did cancel Mr. Potato Head.
He was the first one out.
Well, Mr. and Mrs.
Okay.
Because apparently what had happened was that they wanted to be more inclusive with the toys.
So we have a genderless potato, and you get to...
Well, no, they're not genderless. The point is that the toys, you can make them whatever gender you want. And so you can have a family of potato heads.
So isn't that kind of like... when I buy a Mr. Potato, aren't I buying the gender I want? Isn't that the same thing?
No. Well, because and here's the weird part about it. The weird part about it is that they have they brought it back, the actual Mr. Potato Head and the Mrs. Potato Head. But then they have because what they wanted to do is that they wanted to change it to just genderless potatoes, right?
Okay.
And then it's like you can just kind of mix and match the pieces, and then you can have a male or a female, right? And then you can sort of just make your family, if you want your family to be like a gay couple or a lesbian couple or a trans couple. Like,
but then wouldn't I just buy 2 male Mr. Potatoes?
No, because that's wrong.
How is it different?
The point is, Jenny, so that's not supposed to make any sense. The point is that I think that they're trying to please
it sounds to me like they're just telling the kids that are using these new potatoes, you get to build your own gender. Like, you can't just buy it from the box.
Yeah.
And that sounds a little dangerous.
I mean, I get what they're trying to do, but
I don't get it.
I mean, the way I see it is that, okay, you can, kids kind of know where they are. And it's like whether they know it or not. But what they wanted was to build the freedom for kids to kind of express themselves and express like their family values. Like, if you want to have a potato family of 2 males,
so then buy 2 male Mr. Potatoes.
But they wanted them to build them themselves. You know what I mean? It just allows more freedom for their expression. Because then it's kind of like, all right, like I think I know where your confusion is, because now saying it out loud kind of makes me confused too. It's like, well, why?
Like, if you want your child to have 2 Mr. Potatoes, then just buy 2 Mr. Potatoes.
No, they're canceled, Jenny. They're canceled. You can't have that. You got to be open. That's the whole point of this.
See, yeah, that's where I'm very confused.
So the reason why they canceled it. I mean,
It sounds like they're trying to cancel gender.
yeah. I mean, it's that's where this started from, right?
Right.
So it's like canceling gender preference, canceling gender, I guess, prejudice, because
How could you be prejudiced against gender?
easy. You know, males are supposed to be big dominant males, and women
That's
are
not
supposed to
prejudice. That's a biological fact.
be. Oh yeah.
You're stronger than me,
And it's like,
and I'm okay with that.
yeah, no,
I mean, I hope you're stronger than me.
I hope we can arm wrestle right now. We can
No,
test
you'll
it.
win.
It's like, I don't know.
No, but you know what I'm saying? That's not being prejudiced. That's just a biological fact.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's like, I mean, and it's, people are afraid of talking about that too. Mostly because, for one, this is like an interesting perspective that actually a student of mine brought up. Because one thing that I talked about how there's this cultural shift from masculine men to sort of feminine men,
Like
right?
the beta males.
Yes, like the beta males.
Is
right?
that politically incorrect?
Of course, but that's why we're here. We're here to be
Okay,
politically incorrect,
good.
right? Free speech, which is what it's all about. Yeah, the beta males are just gender fluidity in general, right? And so like Harry Styles came a cover of Vogue magazine where
I saw that with the dress.
yes, with the dress, you know.
I feel like he could have chosen a better dress.
I don't give a shit. I really don't. But what I do care about is that people are either unwilling or afraid to talk about this issue that, all right, yeah, like, guess what? There is such a thing as biology.
Yes.
And I think it has to do with what we were talking about before, about sort of our own agendas serving us. Because, for example, people on the left want to quote scientists when it serves them. Like,
Right.
for example, climate change, right? So, like, you want clean energy, listen to the scientists.
Right.
Oh, but when it comes down to listening to the biologists, oh, no, that's bad.
They don't
right?
know.
So then on the
Yeah.
right, they don't want to listen to the climate scientists, but hey, listen to the biologists, right? So at least like the biological factor, I mean, it's there. It's real, you know? It isn't something, to me, it doesn't seem like something like Pluto. Like we can just change.
We can
like,
kind of,
yeah.
it doesn't affect us, right? I mean, I'm not an astronomist, but
yeah, whether or not
whether it's in our galaxy or not, whether it's no, what is it? It's a planet or not?
it's a dwarf planet now.
Right. But isn't that word like
Dwarf? No, yeah,
Isn't that-
you can't say little people.
you can't?
No. Well,
See, I thought
actually-
it was the other way around. I thought you couldn't say dwarf and you could say little people.
Oh yeah, like you can't say, well,
I could be wrong.
yeah, you can't say midget. You can't say,
Definitely not.
Yeah, so you can't say midget, but you can say, yeah, you just say little person. Actually, yeah, you're right. So you can't
Is
say,
it?
yeah, you
Okay.
can say little person.
Correct us if we're wrong. Anybody out there?
Yeah, please. But that's like the whole point. It's like, all right, you can change that, right? You can change that, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't affect my life. Like, I don't give a shit if Pluto's a planet or not, you know?
Right.
It's like the only thing that concerned me was whether science was being science or not.
Right.
So if
And facts.
and facts,
Yeah.
right? Which is the entire point. It's like, all right, so are there males and are there females? Okay, fact. Are there people who
And when we say facts, we mean facts like the refutable information, not how we feel about facts, because that's no longer a fact. That's a perception.
Yes.
Just to be clear.
that's an opinion, right?
Exactly.
So facts are facts and opinions are opinions, right? We can have opinions about facts,
Yes.
and that's perfectly fine, but then we have to recognize that it's an opinion.
Yes.
So, I mean, I guess back to like the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, we're kind of afraid to talk about masculinity and femininity as if it's a real thing. Or on the other hand, people are just kind of unwilling to talk about it.
Right.
So it's like one thing that, yeah, like I brought up with my students was like there's new perception of men is much more feminine, right? Like how you
Right.
said, the beta males, right?
Yeah.
And well, like what student brought up was like, oh, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe it's not that men are actually becoming more feminine, but maybe it's just that the feminine males are the ones coming onto social media, coming onto these platforms, and they're the ones speaking. And so that's our perception of males now. but the actual alpha,
Right.
Masculine males are actually, doing shit,
Yeah.
like doing real world things instead of
Right.
messing around on social media. But we're all on social media anyways. So that's like our
Right.
perception of
And
it.
that sounds like a very valid point, but the people that would be influenced by the Harry Styles of the nowadays, we won't see them out in the world till a couple of years from now because they're kids. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. Kids, there's a new world
So when you
out there.
have like
And
when they take the gender away from Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, what are we teaching our kids? Don't embrace your gender. Don't the fact that you are a feminine girl might not be a good thing, or if you're a masculine boy might not be a good thing. Is that the message?
I mean, there is a part of me that there is an honest part of me that kind of doesn't want to give a shit, because it's like, all right, it's like how you said, like the boys will, or like, because I don't like, the kids are going to make whatever family they want. So if they want a Mr. Potato Head, they're gonna make a Mr. Potato Head.
Right.
If they want a Mrs., they'll make a Mrs., right? But what matters to me, because I think the kids are gonna be fine. I think the kids are gonna make their potato heads however which way they want.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the toy.
French fries.
Yeah, that's the toy, right? But what worries me is about the adults.
Yeah.
And the adults are gonna be the ones teaching the kids something. And so it's the adults that are canceling calling it Mr. Potato Head.
Right.
It's the adults that are canceling calling Mrs. Potato Head. And then that's what worries me.
I think exactly. I think that's the part that's the most that I happen to have the most issue with, because you don't have a kid that's happens to be playing with these two potato heads, and all of a sudden switching accessories and making the male or whatever. You have an adult saying, from now on, this potato has no gender, and you get to build it and pick. And kids are so shapeable.
Yeah.
They're ready to be molded by their environment. And if you are subliminally letting a kid know your masculinity, is not a good thing, or your femininity is not a good thing, they will take that. They're not going to challenge you on that. They don't know any better. They're counting on you to let them know this is how the world works. This is how you live life. You know what I mean? And it just seems like under the guise of we're doing what's best for the kids, because we're letting them tell us. We can't let kids tell us anything. They don't know any better.
They're little chimps.
Exactly.
They're little animals.
They're actually looking at us to say, okay, tell me, how do I do this thing? How do I live life? And obviously that doesn't mean once your child gets to a certain age, you're not going to let them have opinions and kind of figure themselves out. But at the age that you're using a potato head, they're counting on you for everything. So,
Jenny, I have to ask you.
yes.
What do you think about social media banning Trump?
I think it's utterly ridiculous.
Why do you think so?
I think everyone should be outraged, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a whatever. I don't know what other labels are out there, but I think you should be outraged, because if they ban someone like Trump, they could ban anybody. Yeah. And that's not okay at all.
I completely agree with you. I think that it's in 2020, there was a Senate hearing against the big five tech companies. So it was the CEO of Google, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, all the big guys. And they couldn't touch them because their main question was, are they becoming too big to be controlled by government? And it's sort of like, if anything, that's a little more apocalyptic to me than COVID is. But these people control everything that we talk about, and everything that we can say, everything that we can't say. They control it. And then when Twitter first banned Trump, they silenced the president of the United States of America. Yeah. Whether or not you agree with Trump or not, they silenced the president of the United States of America. And
what does that say to the world?
It says that they have more power than the most powerful person on earth.
Right. And our president at the time, whether you liked him or not, but that's who he was. You're telling the world this guy has no power here. You know what? That did not make sense for me at all.
No,
it still doesn't.
For me, that's kind of the real threat that we have here. And I think it's important for us to recognize that threat and do the best that we can to not be afraid to say whatever it is that it's our opinion. And if you disagree with anything that we are saying, for example, if you disagree with me, if you disagree with Jenny, we're all for that. That's what this is all about.
Exactly.
And it's I think that people need to learn to talk about things that they need to learn to talk about things, especially when it's something that they disagree with.
Yes.
Without getting emotional, without insulting other perspectives. And if some perspectives need to be corrected, well, the only way to do that is through conversation.
Right. That's the only way you're going to make change. If you really want to help and have people understand your point of view and where you're coming from, by getting into those situations about conversations that you may not normally have, it's the only way you're going to make those changes. So,
Jenny, this was a lot of fun.
I agree. It was. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope I have a blessed day. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Yes. Thank you. See you next time.